You ever been out somewhere and you don't mean to, but you're hearing a conversation going on between two people, and it really sounds interesting, and you just kind of want to just kind of stand back, you know, and just kind of eavesdrop on the conversation. I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to ask, you know, I don't want them to ask me any questions or anything else, and I don't want to respond. I just think it's an interesting subject that they're talking about, and really get to, you know, kind of learn about it. Well, the Bible's like that, and a lot of times that, in the series of messages that we're doing on Sunday, we gave you kind of an eavesdrop of a conversation that went on between Jesus and Matthew, kind of embellished the story a little bit, of what was there, because there was a little bit more than Jesus just walking up to him and saying, "Hey, Matthew, come follow me." There were some other things that were happening, and Matthew was seeing it. And next week, we're going to do the same thing with in the book of Luke with some others. And so tonight, kind of what we're going to do is kind of do one of those. And it's like when you start looking at the Bible and some of the conversations that really were kind of neat. Do I? I've got a couple more in there. But anyway, there are times like, we just finished, Jonah and his conversation with God, in the second chapter of Jonah, where Jonah, we were talking about it Wednesday night, where Jonah is in the belly of the whale, and he starts talking about God. I am in this place, and it is total darkness, and I could feel.
I looked up whether Jonah being in the belly of the whale on the internet today. Mm-hmm. How could he breathe? And it said, if you think that this was really bad, whales have a lot of flatulence.
Yes. Worse than cattle's.
Yes. So not only was he in there and it was dark and all that, but the smell was like awful.
Yeah, so many times we just think, well, okay, so what do? I mean, they eat and then they come up for, to expel the air, but also a little bit of other stuff. And I'm really surprised that the liberals haven't tried to get rid of the whales also, but that would be kind of detrimental to their cause, because they're always trying to save the whales. But the whales have got more flatulence than cattle do.
And there was a man, documents in here, in the 1900s, like early 1900s, 1916 or something, that was actually swallowed by a whale, and they didn't know it. The whale was caught, and they found him in the belly of the whale, and
alive.
He was alive. Yep. He was like comatose and went crazy and stuff like that for a while, but he came out of it. He's alive, or was alive.
But it is. And so you have that conversation that Jonah is having with God, and just to overhear it, because because in the conversation that he's having with God, he says, here I am. I'm in the middle of this. It's dark, but even in the darkness, I feel the water just covering me. And my whole head and my body is just covered with seaweed, Lord. And so here I am, really in a very bad place where I've ran away from you. But even though I'm in this bad place and running away from you, I know that you hear me. You haven't turned your back on me. And God, I know that you know, and the other aspect that we were talking about was in there too, where Jonah told God, he said, listen, I know your characteristics. And I know you're a just God. And he said, you know, the reason I didn't go to Nineveh was because I knew that if they turned around, that there was no way you were going to destroy them. And he said, because that's who you are. And so when you begin to look at that conversation, and then sometimes, again, think about the conversation actually between Mary and the angel. So sometimes all we think was that you know, the conversation went something like this. Hey, Mary, you know, blessed art thou among women, you know, you're going to have a child. And when we kind of think that that's the whole conversation, because it doesn't really record the rest of it. But I'm sure there was more conversation that went on between Mary and the angel. Because as we're learning, you know, we're talking in Sunday school, you know, between Jacob and God, you know, and the conversation that he's having with God. And so it would kind of be neat, I think, sometime, just to have eavesdropped on that conversation when the angel told Mary she was going to have a baby. And you know, she's saying, you know, hey, how can this be? I've never known a man. And then they say, well, you don't understand that this child is of God. And it's like, okay, you know, hold on here a minute. I've been raised as in the strict Jewish faith. And I've been brought up to understand that God is going to send us a Messiah. And you're telling me that I'm going to be the one carrying this child? You know, what makes me so privileged, you know, to be able to do this? And I think that she probably had not a 5-second or a 5-minute conversation with the angel. I think she sat down for quite a while. And I think that sometimes the angel even told her a lot more than ever recorded, because when you remember, the Bible says that every time, you know, Mary's seeing Jesus do stuff, it says she just kind of, it's here. And then you think about it for a minute. Here is Mary watching her son Jesus grow up. And I don't know about y'all, but the Bible doesn't record him doing any miracles before he started his ministry. But yet when they came to the wedding there at Cana, and they ran out of the wine, and Mary goes over to Jesus and says, hey, they've ran out of wine. You know, will you do something about this? Because I know you can do this. Well, how did she know that? Do you ever think that maybe she saw something that maybe he did? I mean, I understand that he was teaching at the age of 12 in the synagogue. But teaching in the synagogue at the age of 12 is not like a miracle of healing a blind man or someone that's deaf or turning water into wine. So sometimes it's almost like, and I don't want to make this the same analogy, but it's almost like a bewitched moment, you know, that Darren always knew, about Samantha, but was always telling her, no, don't do it. But I know you're capable of these things. And you see those things. And then you begin to also think about it, because sometimes the Bible doesn't really give us a whole lot. Can you think about some of the conversations that might have went on between Jesus and his 12 disciples, besides what's recorded in the Bible? I think honestly, I believe there were some days that Jesus just kind of stepped back for a moment and said, you guys didn't get it, did you? Here was the story, guys, that I was telling you. And it's like it went over your head. You didn't understand it. And what was that comment that you made, Peter? Where did that come from? I don't know where you got this. And because sometimes you had to think, they weren't all together. It was a ragamuffin. They kind of remind me of the Revolutionary War, American Revolutionary War soldiers. They weren't fighters. They basically were farmers, but they knew how to hunt game. And it's amazing sometimes when you realize that the muskets that they fired, if you ever hit somebody, that was like a 75% chance that you're missing that person, because they just, when it went off and it did the jerk, and the thing just wasn't accurate. But yet there was a guy that in the American Revolutionary War who found a way to basically drill out that muzzle on there so that the bullet, as it was traveling through there, would make it more accurate. And that's how the Americans ended up killing a lot of the British soldiers. Because the British soldiers, they were just standing there marching. And so sometimes just to eavesdrop on some of these conversations, I don't know to you, but sometimes they're just fascinating. And so this is what the Bible gives us. The Bible allows us sometimes to become a third-party bystander to some interesting conversations that go on, that kind of go on in Scripture. And so we are over, and if you remember, he began the whole part of this saying, if you understand a proverb or a parable, that this is what God's giving us, the knowledge and the understanding to be able to understand these things. So tonight we're going to go in verses 8, starting in verse number 8, and we're going to kind of like work our way up. Okay. So somebody, Proverbs chapter 1 and verse number 8.
My son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother.
Now, look at what he's saying. He's saying to him, listen, my son, to your father's instruction. And one of the things that's happening here is this son is about to go out into the world. He's leaving home. And so the father is giving him some instructions. Because here's what's going to happen. And you think about it. What happened when you left home and you got your first house and your first job, and you're around, all of a sudden you're around all of these other people, what do they start giving you? Advice. And was it always good advice? Yeah. And this is what he's trying to say here. He's saying, listen here, son. You're getting ready to leave home. And as you leave home, now you're going to be getting a lot of people that want to start giving you some fatherly advice. They want to start giving you some motherly instruction. And he's saying, hold on a minute. He said, and remember, the one verse that everybody will always quote, to train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. And so many times we want to look at that as a Christian perspective, okay? And yeah, because it's the Bible, and we want to do it. But if you look at Proverbs chapter 1 and verse number 8, that's exactly what that verse is talking about. Is the father is giving the son advice. Hey, son, I've tried to train you up in the way that you should go, so that when you get out here and you start hearing all of these voices coming at you to give you advice, and you're trying to decide which way to go, hey, go back to the Father. And the advice that the Father gave you is generally going to be the advice that you need to follow. Because generally, a father will give good advice to protect their child. And so he's saying, hey, when you get out there, start remembering some of this stuff. Don't forget it, at all. And here's some of the things that sometimes we don't teach our children enough. And that is, it's easy for your children to hear you. When your children, you're trying to talk to them or somebody, and all of a sudden, it's like they're tuned out. And what do you say? Do you hear me? Are you listening to me? Okay, they may hear you, but they're not listening to you. And there's a big difference. And this is what he's trying to say. He's trying to say, when we train up our child in a way that they should go, and he's talking about his father's instructions, what he's saying is hold on a minute. Here's what I'm trying to teach you. Not just hear me, but learn how to listen to me. And think about it for a moment in the concept between us and God as His children. How many times do we hear Him in the Word? But how many times do we listen to what He's saying? Again, I was talking with Michael, and I got irritated today. And I was telling Diane I got irritated today, and I had to turn around and not face the congregation, because the longer I stood up there and watching what was going on, the madder I got. And the more frustrated I got. Because what did I say when I said some things prior to saying, I'm going to show you this video clip. And I want you to what? I want you to pay attention. And as soon as that video clip started, there was people over here talking to each other, and there were people that got their phones out, and the reason I know is because they light up in the dark. So I can tell who's on their phone. And the video wasn't on their phone. The video was up there. And you know what? The majority of that congregation this morning did not get who was moving that house, because they didn't look to see the feet when the house was elevated. You saw those feet, and when you saw those feet, you did not see one foot pointed in the opposite direction. All 86 of those guys' feet were all pointed in the same direction. That's 172 feet going the right way. And they didn't get what we were saying. And it's like, you know, it's the same thing. You know, as a shepherd, my job is to help teach the sheep. But the sheep don't listen. Jesus said, my sheep know my voice, and they'll follow no other. And it's not just a hearing, because when all of these shepherds would come and they would put all of their sheep together in a corral, and it was like, okay, every one of us have got a flock of sheep. And so we bring them into the corral. In the corral had a gate. The gate was wide enough for the sheep to come in. And they would come in one by one into this pen, this corral that they would have. And what would happen is the shepherds would take watch. So you got 12 hours. So you take the first 2 hours, and then I'll come the next 2 hours. And what they would do is they would take their body and they would lay and prop themselves up between the two walls so that nothing could get in there to hurt their sheep. So in the morning, when they were getting ready to go out to pasture with their sheep, if each one of you were a part of the flock, you had six different shepherds all calling at the same time for you to come on, we're going to go eat. And you know what? You didn't follow that. Even though that sheep over here is going this way, you didn't follow that sheep because you heard the voice of the shepherd. It wasn't just hearing. It was listening because you knew the distinct sound of that. Why? Because you learned to listen. And so this is kind of what God's trying to tell us sometimes in this, is that if as a child, a young Christian, when we're being taught or discipled by someone, we're hearing what they're saying, but in the same token, we should be learning how to listen. Because if I can listen, I will learn the proper instruction. Because I'm going to get away. And what does the Bible say? You know, when God asked Satan, you know, where did you come from? And he said, well, I came from walking to and fro on the earth, seeking to that which I could devour. I'm trying to pick them off. I'm trying to tell them something else. And they're hearing me. And they're beginning to listen to me. Because they forgot what the instructions, of the Father. And so, sometimes when you begin to look in Proverbs chapter 1 through 9, you'll begin to also understand that, can I tell you why God talks to you the way that he does? What do you think? Why does God talk to us the way that he does?
We're his children.
Okay. And what does he want his children to do?
Listen.
Listen and learn which way to go. We're showing a movie on March the 23rd.
Yes.
Yeah. How many of y'all read Pilgrim's Progress, the book, John Bunyan? It was a kid that, or it was a book a lot of times that they made you read in high school. Okay, and they've made it into an animated movie, and it's really neat because it's for kids as well as adults, and the whole thing is built upon the premise that every one of us are going through life. And as we go through life, we always hit these spots in our life where you've got to make a choice on which road to choose. And what's really neat, and I don't want to tell you the whole movie because it's all about making right choices and all this thing. But they come to these two roads, and guess what both of these roads are like?
Easy road?
Mm-mm. No.
Hard road?
There's an easy road, which is what? I'm sorry. It's wide. And there's a hard road, which is narrow. And so what they do in the movie, and you'll see, is they have this narrow road. Okay? And what it is this narrow road is carved out. It isn't like what we think, like it may be this wide, but it's carved out. And it's carved out, and when you're walking in there, you're walking between two walls. You want to know why?
Keep you on the right path.
He wants to keep you on the right path, but he also wants something else. If I'm, let's say that this is the path, and this path is wide. It's a narrow road, and it's just wide enough for me to fit in. And it's between two walls, and I'm actually inside these two walls in this narrow path. Why?
He don't want you to stray.
He doesn't want you to stray. And what would cause me to stray? Huh? Yeah. If there was any way I could look over the walls, I might see something that, oh, wow, I don't want to walk this path. I want to go over here. And sometimes we don't understand that that's what God's trying to tell us. Exactly, with blinders on. And actually, that's what God is actually does us. And sometimes we don't tell people that. We just say, oh, it's a narrow road and it's a wide road. And in there, it's really neat how they do this, because what they do is they've got the narrow road. And in this narrow road, it is very, very difficult to turn around. You've got to start shimmying, because it's like crunch time, And so you've got to really turn around. And you can't see what's on the outside. And so you've got to focus your attention on what's going this way, and what's in front of you, and what you see, and what you're striving for to get to the end of the road. And so on the narrow path, you can go anywhere on that one. And it kind of looks attractive, maybe sometimes, the wide path. The broad path is, it just wants to be this way, okay? So when you begin to start looking at chapters 1 through 9, what he does is it's almost like a play. And each chapter of this is an act or a scene in the play. And so what you're going to find in each one of these are different voices that you're going to hear. Chapter 1, what you find is a rebellious voice that's in here, okay? And then you're going to find another voice in chapter 2, when we get there, which is going to be more of a wisdom type thing. Chapter 4 is going to be a voice of the wicked. And then what's going to happen in chapters 5 and 7 is you're going to hear the voices of an adulteress and an idolater, okay? And so what's happening here is this. Now you think about it. As a parent, what do you want to tell your child about the world? That you're going to run into different characters, right? And every one of those characters is not looking out for your good. So I need to tell you about each of these characters, okay? It's like you sold used cars for a while, didn't you? Okay. So I was watching a post on New Middletown Talk, and this person had bought a car from this person, and they got 10 miles down the road, and the car stopped, and it wouldn't go, and they're writing on there saying, how could this person do this to me, and all this stuff, and the person was on there saying, well, don't you understand where they get these cars from? They get these cars from the auction, a Desco, there in Franklin. And at first I didn't know what that was. I thought, man, there's a big building over there. There's a bunch of cars. And then the next day I come by and there's still a bunch of cars. And it finally dawned on me, there's an auction over there. And so a lot of these, I go to a dealer and I trade my car in. That dealer evaluates whether that car is worth it to keep it or just go ahead and give it to the auction and get whatever you can get out of it, because that's good, fine with me. Because the thing's got a lot of miles on it. I don't want to get in there and start having to fix stuff. I don't know when something's going to go broke on it. And I don't want a bad name that I sold a car off my lot where the cars just keep breaking down. So these people are buying these cars. A lot of these used car dealers are buying these cars off these car lots, and they're selling them. And they're falling apart. And so sometimes it's like, telling your kid they're going to buy their first new car. What advice do you give them? And I always heard was, kick the tires. I'm thinking, okay.
That's the least of the work.
That's exactly. And so my mom was always buying these used cars from these people. And the first thing she would do is always check the tires. Oh, they got good tread. Okay, cool. If the car runs, yeah, it'll get you down the road. But if the car doesn't, then it's going to probably sit there long enough, and the tires aren't going to dry rot right off the bat. And so you begin to start telling your children, here's what you need to look out for. Here's these things. Remember all of these things where they would always always, they would give you this, a postcard in the mail. If you come here, we're going to get you a new set of glasses or a new set of steak knives, right? If you'll come, if you'll come. And there's no purchase required. And you only have to attend a 30-minute presentation. And we're not going to pressure you into buying. And at the end of the way, you can get your steak knife or whatever it is that you can do. How many times did you walk out of there with a snake knife? That's what it was, a snake knife. A steak knife and didn't buy anything. I mean, we went to a couple and we told them right off the bat, you can do whatever you want to. We're not buying.
We're here for the knives.
Yeah, we're here for the knives. You know, they cost $10. That saved me $10. But I have to sit there for 30 minutes listening to somebody.
But it's never 30 minutes.
Oh, no. And we learned, yeah, we learned this, you know, with all this pressure. And it's today only. You know, you can't walk away. If you walk away and you come back tomorrow, the price is up here. You know, and it's like, as parents, it's our obligation and responsibility to tell our kids, you know, about this. How many times do you read newspaper articles today? We'll go back to the used car thing. I was reading in the newspaper, this guy bought a car off eBay. Not one, 2 cars. Let's pretend I'm the sailor. He buys the car. And I said, well, here's what you do. Send me go get some money out of your bank and wire me some money to this account. And I'll send you your car. He didn't fall for it once. Fell for it twice and lost $18,000. And he wasn't a young kid. The bad part about it, he was 60-something. And somebody taking advantage of him. And how many times should we tell our kids about that type of stuff? How many times should we tell our kids that, hey, these things that say Gucci or Rolex for $5, they're not the genuine thing.
You get what you pay for.
Exactly. You know, and this is what the book of Proverbs here is trying to do. He's trying to tell his son, here are different types of people in the world. And here's their characteristics. But can I tell you something? It wasn't just Solomon giving wisdom from the father to his natural son. It is our Heavenly Father that's giving wisdom to his spiritual children and warning us. And he's warning us about the tricks of Satan so that we can know who the enemy is and the of the characteristics. Okay? So look at what he says. Verse number 8. Listen, my son, to your father's instructions. Don't reject your mother's teachings. And go on to verse number 9.
For this shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head, and change about thy neck.
So what does that mean? Mine says a garland of grace on your head. Yeah, in a gold chain or a necklace around your neck. Think about this. Look at this. Now, what did you say, Chet?
For there shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head.
An ornament of grace. Okay.
Change about thy neck.
Now,
Wear a pretty hat or a lovely necklace.
yeah. And so he's saying that your father's instruction is going to be like a hat. Your mother's teaching is going to be like a gold chain or necklace around you. Why? Why is he giving us this illustration? A hat of grace and a chain around you. And sometimes we forget that what happens here is that God's trying to tell us that the wisdom is His grace. And the chain is a necklace to where it shows our beauty. It brings a reflection and attention. Okay? But look at what now he's going to start giving you some warning. Verse number 10.
My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not.
Yeah.
Mine says, don't be tempted by sinners or listen, but you have to go on to 11. Don't
Right.
be tempted by sinners or listen when they say, come on, let's gang up and kill somebody just for fun.
Yep. And you think about it sometimes. Again, when he was saying up here, first of all, to hear again, and he's saying, here's the foundation, and now to listen. Okay, so when do we hear? And we basically, we're listening with our heart with this stuff. Okay. And then he starts talking about, I'm going to give you a warning about hearing the stupidity of folly. Because look at what he says. My son, if sinners entice you, don't be persuaded. If they're trying to bring you in, they're trying to get you to follow. Because it's like, how many times as a kid, when you're out there, and let's say there's about 5 or 6 of you, and you're all playing, and all of a sudden 5 of them want to go do something. And you think about it, like here, like let's set an ambush and kill somebody. Let's attack some innocent person just for fun. Think of how many times you've seen the news where an older person's been walking down the street, or right now, somebody wearing a Trump hat. They've got a mega hat on, and they're walking in this neighborhood, and then all of a sudden, there's a gang of people that are beating this person up, not because the person did anything wrong. It's just they got this hat on. Or how many times you heard when there was a person walking down the street and everybody thought they were gay, and they would beat up on them. Or somebody walking down the street and they were black, and all of a sudden the white would gang up on them. And there were how many times you would hear of a black person being lynched and hung out on a tree somewhere because they didn't do anything. It's just somebody just thought, well, this will be fun. Let's just kill them.
And people, I've been heard just they're in the wrong side of town.
Yeah.
Yeah, got to make some sort of
A statement that these people don't belong in my territory.
Right.
I mean, honestly, I grew up like that in the street that I lived on. It was all white. And a black person, if they came on that street, they were told, no, you want to walk around here, you go down the levee and you walk along the river. You don't walk up here. It taught that as a kid, and it's like.
It was taught that up our Somerville,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There is still no black people.
Yeah. And it's like, why? They didn't do anything.
They just got a different color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
church we grew up in, and they
Oh.
weren't mean to them or anything, but if black people came in the church, they were met at the back door or the front door by the deacon.
Yeah.
And said, we can
Yeah.
Unity Church down the road.
You know, and so this is what he's saying. He's saying that there's wisdom. There's sometimes that you're going to get in the wrong crowd, and they're going to just say, let's just go kill somebody for the fun of it. And you think about it. This is what Satan's doing. He's enticing us to do stupid stuff. And he's trying to say, son, this is what's going to happen. They're going on. Look at what he says in verse number 12.
They're well and healthy now, but we'll finish them off once and for all.
Yeah. So they're still talking about what they're going to do to this person. Verse number 13. He's still continuing on what they're going to do. We're going to we'll find all kinds of valuable property, and we're going to fill our houses with plunder or whatever we can steal. I mean, think about it today. How many people, you know, when they get together, it's not one person going in and stealing something. There's 2 or 3 of them going in, and and think of it. Some of the stuff they're taking, it's like, what is you taking this for? You know, let's just take it. So then he says, throw in your lot with us, and we'll all share money. You know, it's always, we're going to rob a bank, and we're going to all split it up. But look at what, now he starts coming back in verses 15 through 17, and he starts giving some advice to his son. And look at what he says here.
My son, walk not thou in the way with them. Refrain thy foot from the path.
Keep going in 16.
For their feet run to evil and make haste to shed blood.
Yeah. He says, you hang out with them, and guess what's going to happen? It's going to take you down a road real quick that you don't want to go on. Okay? And he begins to start telling them. He says that, hey, first of all, this path will always lead to destruction. Unless you get off that path, it's going to kill you. And you think about it. How many times have you seen little kids, let's say 7, 8, 9 years old, and they start hanging around with these 13, 14, and 15-year-olds? And you're watching what they're doing. And he's 15. My nephew was going to Fairfield. And what they were doing was, they were seniors that were 18 years of age. And what they were doing was they were getting kids that were like 14 and 15, just coming into the high school, and getting them to run their drugs. Because they knew that if the 14 or 15-year-old got caught, they're just going to slap them on the wrist and send them to juvie. But if they caught me as an 18-year-old, I'm going to jail. And this is what he's trying to say, that you've got these up here that have already got this, and what they start doing is they start trying to draw you in. And when they draw you in and you start down that path, guess what it's going to do? It's going to lead you to destruction. He's trying to say, this is what's going to happen to you. And isn't that the same thing that God tells us? That when you start listening to the enticing words of Satan, it will lead you to destruction. It's where it's going to take you. Okay? Now, read on from 17 through 19, if you would.
So in vain, the net is spread. You could say of any bird, and they lay wait for their own bud, and lurk privily for their own lives. So are the ways of every one that is greedy of gain, which taketh away the life of the owners thereof.
Yeah, he's saying, hey, it's foolish to take a net and spread it out when a bird can see it. And he says, and a bird can see it. He says, but they set an ambush to kill themselves, and they attack their own lives. And what he's saying is this. You spread this net to try to capture, and people see it. And they can avoid it. But what happens is, you set the net and you get caught. And what's it going to do? It's going to attack your own life. The thing that you thought was going to be the thing to give you your gain is going to be the thing that's going to give you your loss. And destroy your life. And he begins to start telling us that when you begin to look at that, is this. They start, if you start listening to them and the things that go on, he says, these plans that they lay, eventually they're going to get caught. I don't know if you've been watching the news. Out in California, they had this killer. It was called I think they called it the Golden Gate Killer or Golden State Killer. This person had killed people for like 20 some years, and they never could. They had a suspect who they believed it was, but they never could pin it on him. Okay? They never could pin it on him. But what ended up happening was, remember this Ancestry.com and this 23andMe? Well, what had happened was, they had stored some stuff from back over the process of the years. And so all of a sudden, and this is what people don't realize is going on, okay? And this is why some people won't take it, is when they get your DNA, they share it. Well, guess who wants the DNA? The police. The authorities. Because if I can take and trace that DNA back to this over here, I can tell you that it was your grandfather that did all the crimes. And so, they can't try the person now, but they know who it was. And after years, they have found out. They are solving a lot of cases where people thought for years they killed somebody and they got by with it. And what he's saying is that whenever you start going down this slope, you don't get by with it. It will always end up taking something away from you or out of you. And then we'll start, and then next time we'll start on something else. But he's saying that there's two things that you need to understand about these people. First, they make these plans, and let me say to you, no matter what those plans are, they're always going to break down. Remember Ponzi schemes? Hey, Ponzi schemes that they had. I would start a company, and what I would do is I would get all of you in part of my company, and so you would sell my product, and I would really be nice to you, and here's what I would do: I would get 5% of your profits, and I'll let you keep 20% of your profits.
It's like Amway.
Yeah. And then what you do is you go get 5 people underneath you, and you get their 5%. Okay? 5% of them, and they get to keep 20. But the thing of it is, you're working for me. I'm getting 5% of everything you're making.
Yep.
So all of this stuff that's coming down here, all of these people, you're not working for the person above you. You're working for the man at the top or the woman at the top. The one that's in the pinnacle is the one that's making the money. And the last person in, nobody else wants to sell it. Everybody's selling it. You know, and so you can't do it. So what he's saying is that their plans are always going to break down. And the last thing that he's trying to tell them is, you know, look at this. Throw in your lot with us on verse number 14, and we'll all share our money. And what they're trying to tell you is this: I'm going to write you a check, and there's no money in the account. That check's going to bounce. And that's the same thing that's going to happen. We're going to split the loot. No, what's going to happen? You're going to get caught. And what loot are you going to split? There's nothing there to split.
But you're involved in it.
But you're involved in it. And so the first part of this is you know, he's trying to tell us about, you know, what's there. And so next week we'll start talking about.
Hello, this is Pastor Chuck Cotton from Calvary Baptist Church. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for taking the time out to either listen to our sermon or to watch it on video. We are grateful that you've actually taken the time and hope and pray that it has been a blessing to you as it was to us as we delivered it to our congregation. We ask if you have any questions whatsoever that you email us at pastorchuck@calvarybaptistmiddletown.org, or you could come in and give us a phone call, if you would please, at area code 513-423-7251. I'd like to take this opportunity to also invite you to come to our church and visit us, if you would please. We actually have small groups on Sunday morning starting at 9:30, with our morning worship following at 10:45. Prior to our morning small groups, we also provide donuts with coffee, milk, orange juice, a time for fellowship, get to know each other, have a good time before we actually break out into our small groups for Sunday. Our worship services are uplifting, they're fast moving, and everything in our service is just a fast pace. But we do take time every once in a while to slow down as we feel the Holy Spirit moving, and we never want to hinder it in any way. We also have on Sunday evening, and during the school year, we have Awana, and Awana starts with the Puggles, actually from age 2 all the way up through high school. And during that period of time, we also have a worship service. Both of these start at 6 o'clock and end at 7:30. Our Wednesday night, we have a Bible study, which starts at 7. We generally finish about 8:15. We would love for you to come and visit with us. Don't have to dress up. Just come as you are, because to us, it doesn't matter. You're a child of God, a creation of His, and so to us, you're important to everything that we do. Our motto here is building the kingdom one life at a time, and we hope that we have a chance to visit with you, get to know you as you get to know us. So thank you, and may God bless you.